Welcome back, guys. I hope that you had a great week last night, and it was a crazy storm. And I slept in a tent, and it was really intense. But I hope that you guys are having time to have fun outside and hopefully read and follow along with me too, because it's exciting. And Peter Pan has been always a classic for me. Really enjoyed it when I was younger, so I hope you guys are enjoying it too. Let's get back into it. Chapter 5: The Island Come True. Feeling that Peter was on his way back, the Neverland had again woke him into life. We ought to use the perfect and say wakened, but woke is better, and was always used by Peter. In his absence, things are usually quiet on the island. The fairies take an hour longer in the morning, the beasts attend to their young, the redskins feed heavily for 6 days and nights, and when pirates and lost boys meet, they merely bite their thumbs at each other. But with the coming of Peter, who hates lethargy, they are all under way again. If you put your ear to the ground now, you would hear the whole island seething with life. On this evening, the chief forces of the island were disposed as follows. The Lost Boys were out looking for Peter. The pirates were out looking for the Lost Boys. The Redskins were out looking for the pirates, and the beasts were out looking for the Redskins. They were going round and round the island, but they did not meet because all were going at the same rate. All wanted blood except the boys, who liked it as a rule, but tonight were out to greet their captain. The boys on the island vary, of course, in numbers, according as they get killed and so on. And when they seem to be growing up, which is against the rules, Peter thins them out. But at this time there were 6 of them, counting the twins as 2. Let us pretend to lie here among the sugar cane and watch them as they steal by in single file, each with his hand on his dagger. They are forbidden by Peter to look in the least like him, and they wear the skins of bears slain by themselves, in which they are so round and furry that when they fall they roll. They have therefore become very sure-footed. The first to pass is Toodles, not the least brave, but the most unfortunate of all that gallant band. He had been in fewer adventures than any of them, because the big things constantly happened just when he had stepped round the corner. All would be quiet. He would take the opportunity of going off to gather the few sticks for firewood, and then when he returned the others would be sweeping up the blood. The ill luck had given a little melancholy to his countenance, but instead of souring his nature, had sweetened it, so that he was quite the humblest of the boys. Poor kind Toodles, there is danger in the air for you tonight. Take care lest an adventure is now offered to you, which, if accepted, will plunge you into deepest woe. Toodles, the fairy Tink, who is bent on mischief this night, is looking for a tool, and she thinks you the most easily tricked of the boys. Where Tinker Bell? Would that he could hear us, but we are not really on the island, and he passes by, biting his knuckles. Next comes Snibs, the happy and debonair, followed by Slightly, who cuts whistles out of the trees and dances ecstatically to his own tunes. Slightly is the most conceited of the boys. He thinks he remembers the days before he was lost, with their manners and customs, and this has given his nose an offensive tilt. Curly is 4th. He's a pickle, and so often he had to deliver up his person when Peter said sternly, "Stand forth, the one who did this thing," that now at the command he stands forth automatically, whether he has done it or not. Last come the twins, who cannot be described because we should be sure to be describing the wrong one. Peter never quite knew what twins were, and his bands were not allowed to know anything he did not know. So these 2 were always vague about themselves, and did their best to give satisfaction by keeping close together in an apologetic sort of way. The boys vanish in the gloom, and after a pause, but not a long pause, for things go briskly on the island, come the pirates on their track. We hear them before they are seen, and it is always the same dreadful song. Avast, belay, yo-ho, heave to, a pirating we go, and if we're parted by a shot, we're sure to meet below. A more villainous-looking lot never hung in a row on execution dock. Here, a little in advance, ever and again, with his head in the ground listening, his great arms bare, pieces of 8 in his ears as ornaments, is the handsome Italian Cecco, who cut his name in letters of blood on the back of the governor of the prisoner at Goa. That gigantic black behind him has had many names since he dropped the one with which dusky mothers still terrify their children on the banks of the Gujo Mole. Here is Bill Jukes, every inch of him tattooed, the same Bill Jukes who got 6 dozen on the Walrus from Flint, before he would drop the bag of Moidors, and Cookson, said to be Black Murphy's brother. But this was never proved. And Gentleman Starkey, once an usher in a public school, and still dainty in his ways of killing. And Skylights, Morgan's Skylights. And the Irish Borson Smee, an oddly genial man who stabbed, so to speak, without offence, and was the only nonconformist in Hook's crew. And Noodler, whose hands were fixed on backwards, and Robin Mullins, and Elf Mason, and many other ruffian long known and feared on the Spanish Main. In the midst of them, the blackest and largest jewel in that dark setting, reclined James Hooks, or as he wrote himself, Jas Hooks, of whom it is said he was the only man that the sea crook feared. He lay at his ease in a rough chariot, drawn and propelled by his men. Instead of a right hand, he had the iron hook, with which ever and anon he encouraged them to increase their pace. As dogs, this terrible man treated and addressed them, and as dogs they obeyed him. In person he was cadaverous and black-of-eyed, and his hair was dressed in long curls, which at a little distance looked like black candles, and gave a singularly threatening expression to his handsome countenance. His eyes were of the blue of the forget-me-not and of a profound melancholy, save when he was plunging his hook into you, at which time 2 red spots appeared them, and lit them up horribly. In manner something of the Grand Seigneur still clung to him, so that he even ripped you up with an air, and I have been told that he was a raconteur of repute. He was never more sinister than when he was most polite, which is probably the truest test of breeding, in the elegance of his diction, even when he was swearing, no less than the distinction of his demeanor, showed him one of a different caste from his crew, a man of indomitable courage. It was said of him that the only thing he shied at was the sight of his own blood, which was thick and of an unusual color. In dress he somewhat aped the attire associated with the name of Charles II, having heard it said in some earlier period of his career that he bore a strange resemblance to the ill-fated Stuarts, and in his mouth he had a holder of his own contrivance, which enabled him to smoke 2 cigars at once. But undoubtedly the grimmest part of him was his iron claw. Let us now kill a pirate, to show Hook's method. Skylights will do. As they pass, Skylights lurches clumsily against him, ruffling his lace collar. The hook shoots forth. There is a tearing sound and one screech. Then the body is kicked aside, and the pirates pass on. He has not even taken the cigars from his mouth. Such is the terrible man against whom Peter Pan is pitted. Which will win? On the trail of the pirates, stealing noiselessly down the warpath, which is not visible to inexperienced eyes, come the redskins, every one of them with his eyes peeled. They carry tomahawks and knives, and their naked bodies gleam with paint and oil. Strung around them are scalps, of boys as well as of pirates, for these are the Pickaninny tribe, and not to be confused with the soft-hearted Delawares or the Hurons. In the van, on all fours, is Great Big Little Panther, a brave of so many scalps that in his present position they somewhat impede his progress. Bringing up the rear, the place of greatest danger, comes Tiger Lily, profoundly erect, a princess in her own right. She is the most beautiful of dusky Dianas, and the belle of the Pickaninnies. Cold and amorous by turns, there is not a brave who would not have the wayward thing to wife, but she staves off the altar with a hatchet. Observe how they pass over fallen twigs without making the slightest noise. The only sound to be heard is their somewhat heavy breathing. The fact is that they are all a little fat just now after the heavy gorging, but in time they will work this off. For the moment, however, it constitutes their chief danger. The redskins disappear as they have come, like shadows, and soon their place is taken by the beasts, a great and motley procession. Lions, tigers, bears, and the innumerable smaller savage things that flee from them. For every kind of beast, and more particularly all the man-eaters, like Cheek by Jowl on the favored island. Their tongues are hanging out. They're hungry tonight. When they have passed, comes the last figure of all, a gigantic crocodile. We shall see for whom she is looking presently. The crocodile passes, but soon the boys appear again, for the procession must continue indefinitely until one of the parties stops or changes its pace. Then quickly they will be on top of each other. All are keeping a sharp lookout in front, but none of the suspects that the danger may be creeping up from behind. None suspects that the danger may be creeping up from behind. This shows how real the island was. The first to fall out of the moving circle was the boys. They flung themselves down on the sward, close to their underground home. I do wish Peter would come back, every one of them said nervously, though in height and still more in breadth they were all larger than their captain. I'm the only one who's not afraid of the pirates, Slightly said in a tone that prevented his being a general favorite, but perhaps some distant sound disturbed him, for he added hastily, "But I wish he would come back, and tell us whether he has heard anything more about Cinderella." They talked of Cinderella, and Toodles was confident that his mother must have been very like her. It was only in Peter's absence that they could speak of mothers, the subject being forbidden by him as silly. "All I remember about my mother," Nibs told them, "is that she often said to father, 'Oh, how I wish I had a checkbook of my own.' I don't know what a checkbook is, but I should just love to give my mother one." While they talked, they heard a distant sound. You or I, not being wild things of the woods, would have heard nothing, but they heard it, and it was the grim song. Yo ho, the pirate life, the flag of skull and bones, a merry hour, a hempen rope, and hey for Davy Jones. At once the lost boys. But where are they? They are no longer there. Rabbits could not have disappeared more quickly. I will tell you where they are, with the exception of Nibs, who has started away to remember. They are already in their home under the ground, a very delightful residence of which we shall see a good deal presently. But now have they reached it? For there is no entrance to be seen, not so much as a pile of brushwood, which, if removed, would disclose the mouth of a cave. Look closely, however, and you may note that there are here 7 large trees, each having in its hollow trunk a hole as large as a boy. These are the 7 entrances to the home under the ground, for which Hook has been searching in vain these many moons. Will he find it tonight? Alright, so we're going to just pause there because this chapter is a little long, and I'll make it into 2 videos. But what do you guys think about it so far? Kind of crazy, just like setting the scene, right, and just explaining very in depth about who all the crew members are of Hook and his army, which is pretty crazy, kind of dark, and sinister in a way. Building up to the fight that's gonna happen with him and Peter Pan. I'm not sure how that's gonna go, but we'll see. And yeah, just kind of think about what you guys think is gonna happen next, and I hope you enjoy. And then look on to the next video, and you'll hear more about it.